There you go. And we are live. Welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack Weekly Live Show. I'm your host, NBA Fantasy Papi from Fantasy Basketball PH. And we are going to do supposedly our weekly live discussions and Q&A. But of course, since this is a new show, so while we're waiting for people to, make this your consistent weekly fantasy basketball Q&A go-to show, we are going to discuss a couple of questions from pages, and then also we have an overlaying topic, which is about these two big men that has been playing very well. Shout out to Papi Jamie Perog. What's up, bro? Thank you for joining the show. Okay, so before we start checking out questions from the page, from the groups that you might eventually share sentiments with, let's talk about our topic for today. And this is in between two big men that has been playing surprisingly the same timeline, which is about their past three games. They have been playing very, very well. And I'm talking about Mark Williams and Onyeka Okongwu. So let's first talk about Onyeka Okongwu. So I think Onyeka Okongwu is someone that we've been really hoping and waiting and hoping and waiting for the past, what, 3 seasons? And I remember there were seasons wherein the ADP of Onyeka Okongwu is as early as third round or fourth round, right? So surprisingly, since it toned down, there's a lot of new big men, especially the youngsters in the past 2 seasons, especially this season as well. There's a lot of rookie big men that has superseded the hype of someone like Onyeka Okongwu, who is a very uh, good big man that can provide the per minute stats. And now that he's getting some momentum, I think we have to refocus and revisit our hype and our love for Onyeka Okongwu. So since his last 3 games, Onyeka Okongwu has been averaging double doubles, and there was a game actually where he had a 2020 game. So now the question is this something that will eventually hurt us again, similar to last couple of seasons? Or are we really entering the Onyeka Okongwu season? Right? So personally, I am still hopeful. I drafted Onyeka Okongwu in couple of my leagues, especially in our fantasy basketball analyst league. Shout out to Adam King and the likes, especially the ones who covered industry pick up. Shout out to you guys. So I've specifically drafted Onyeka Okongwu there towards in the end of the rounds, just with the hope that maybe this is that season. And I think we have to really hammer a lot of Onyeka Okongwu. So let me check his ownership right now. So mostly I've been playing Yahoo. So comment out if you have any other apps that you've been playing. By the way, we're live via YouTube and via Facebook. So just check out Fantasy Six Pack. And of course, this will be shared in our Filipino page, which is Fantasy Basketball PH. If you haven't followed and like and subscribe in our page and group, just check out Fantasy Basketball PH. So currently, Okongwu is owned in Yahoo in just 78%. So I really think this is the upcoming weeks should be the weeks wherein we really roll the dice on Onyeka Okongwu. Aside from really providing quality stats, these are double doubles in the last 3 games. There's a good chance that towards the trade deadline, Clint Capella might be traded. Maybe. But, I mean, the thinking should be always, hey, in all of the free agents that I see in the, in my league, which ones could actually provide a top 75 value, top 50 value. And I really think Onyeka Okongwu can do that. So to the rest of the 22% in Yahoo that haven't really picked up Onyeka Okongwu, even if it's like just 10 team league, I really think to those shallow leagues, he's worth the stream and hold player. So go ahead and add Onyeka Okongwu. If you own Onyeka Okongwu, you should be really happy and excited towards the trade deadline. And even if he won't, Capella won't get traded, trend says that Okongwu is really getting more minutes than in comparison to the past couple of months. So I hope this continues, and this is something that we've been waiting for. So why not? This was one of the few seasons wherein his value is very very low, right? If you were really willing to take him I mean draft him higher than expected in the past two seasons. Now that you weren't able to do that, you just picked him up or drafted him towards round 10 or 11. What more can you lose, right? So this is kind of like really in a sense in the level of a risk free. So let's go ahead and hammer Okongwu. Do we trade for Okongwu? I would say yes, but since he's getting hype again, you might end up not getting a good value out of him. Get uh he might get priced a little bit higher compared to past weeks. So I can't really say that this is the best time to buy some Okongwus. But if you can get a fair value for it, why not, right? So at least you get some profit out of it. Because there's still a chance that Clint Capella won't get traded. And again, it's going to end up a heartbreak. But, I think it's worth the risk. The other player, the other big man is Mark Williams. So Mark Williams, we've been craving for a full-time healthy Mark Williams. We haven't seen that. Well, we might actually end up seeing it this season. I think Charlotte Hornets is like they should have been better than the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons now really cares if they win. I think it's come into a situation that their primary players, especially Cade Cunningham, doesn't really like to lose. Again, I think it's it the culture that he came upon when he was drafted isn't the best culture for a stud like him. He wanted, I think he's craving for that new culture that, hey, even though we aren't there yet, we have to win. Similar to what Wemby is currently doing in the San Antonio Spurs. So with that said, I am seeing the Charlotte Hornets doing the same thing, following the same direction, because they have better pieces over the likes of Detroit Pistons, right? I mean, let's be honest. Despite not, I don't know, it's despite that recipe that isn't there yet for the Charlotte Hornets, at least they have good pieces to work around. They have LaMelo Ball, and I think he's kind of like the kid gunning of the Charlotte Hornets. And Mark Williams is like the Doran of the Detroit Pistons. The thing is, arguably, they have better role players that haven't been really just healthy, I guess, for this season. They have good vets. They have someone like Miles Bridges, who has been consistent for them. Unfortunately, Brandon Miller is out, so they have something in Charlotte. So I do believe that this season they will really try to um, ensure that the Mark Williams is healthy, and then Mark Williams is gonna mesh up with Lamelo Ball moving forward. So with that said, I'm really uh I kind of like got more confidence, especially that they're also confident to trade away Nick Richards. Part of it is the emergence of Debate, but then again, it just shows that Mark Williams is healthier than we speculated. So it took a lot of time for us to get here, but Mark Williams is here. I think he's arrived. He provided good quality stats in the past 3 games, 3 to 4 games, and I think it should continue. But I also think that there will be games that he will sit. I also think that the Charlotte Hornets will still kind of like not push him really, really hard. They have that ability given that Diabate is available as his backup. And he's actually a motor guy that could really back up Mark Williams. And since there are several rumors that maybe they do some trades again. So let's see how would they eventually find ways to support Mark Williams moving forward. But he's been playing 36 minutes, 33 minutes since January 12th. So it just shows that he's really healthy. Though there were questionable tags in the past days, the reporters here says that it's just like a precautionary tag, and he's definitely gonna play still. But then again, bottom line is let's really ride this time with Mark Williams. Some leagues he got undrafted just because of the weary of him not playing or his injury lingering, but this injury isn't really related to the previous one. So as long that as he's healthy, as long as he's getting 30 minutes onwards, it shows the confidence for the Charlotte Hornets. So we should also be confident too. So again, these two big men are the two top big men that emerge this week. And I think this is gonna continue moving forward after the trade deadline, whatever happens, if especially for Okongwu, if Clint Capella gets traded, then all systems go. I think the rest of the season, I'm really confident that he can finish this year with a bang. That goes as well with Mark Williams. So all gears towards up. So go ahead and hammer the Mark Williams and Okongwu senior leagues. Okay, so we've talked about our overlaying topic. Let's now talk about a couple of questions online. And again, if you have any questions, just drop it and comment out in our YouTube and Facebook page. We are live in Fantasy Six Pack, so just search Fantasy Six Pack at YouTube and Facebook. All right, so we have a question from Fernando de la Peña. He said here, hello, how are you doing? In a 9-cat 12-man league, would you trade Mark Williams for Derek White? His PGs are Halliburton, Dante, Scoot, and Kayson Wallace. And my Cs are Sabonis, Yanis, Sar, Gordon, and then J-Dub has an eligibility to be a center. So those are his front court. So now he's trying to trade his Mark Williams for Derek White. And I would say I'd probably do that just because in terms of his PG lineup, he has some couple of names here that aren't established yet in terms of providing guard stats. Like for example, DiVincenzo. DiVincenzo has been playing well, but I have to see him do it more, especially after the trade deadline. Because who knows if the Wolves makes a move, right? So there's some question mark there. He also got Scoot Henderson, who's also playing well, but then again, the Portland Blazers could be buyers or sellers towards the trade deadline. So there's some uncertainty there. And then you have Kayson Wallace, who isn't a starter. Well, he starts sometimes, but he doesn't provide the traditional PG stats. He provides the defensive side of guard, right? So with that said, you already have good front court with Sar, Yanis, Sabonis, and Gordon. Yeah, I'd rather have a Derek White over Mark Williams just to add some PG stats. Good thing about adding Derek White here, he still provides blocks. He's a good blocker for a guard. He provides good, essentially most of the time, good percentages, which still meshes with possibly your structure here because you have a lot of big mans. And then he doesn't give a lot of assists, but he still give you a lot of snipes. So yeah, good. I think this is a good trade. Of course, I've kind of like hyped up Mark Williams earlier, but let's be honest. As much love that we can give to Mark Williams, he still has that question mark tag in his back, wherein at some point, given his injury history, who knows, right? So just to be safe, I'm gonna go with approving this possible trade, Derek White for Mark Williams. Okay, let's check a couple more. I have a question here. Is Bob Carrington a hold in 14 team 9 cats? At this point, I would say yes. He is playing very poorly. So generally, I would say yes. This is with a hopeful tag that the Washington Wizards is gonna make a lot of moves toward trade deadline. We're just what within the 3 or 2 weeks left. So if your team can withstand that, the upside of a full time usage Bob Carrington could actually be enticing. We've seen him almost putting triple doubles during summer league, but those aren't really efficient triple doubles. But the main difference between Bob Carrington and other rookie guards had their experience in playing in the NBA, like with an approach that they didn't play a lot of minutes toward in the start of their seasons unless you're a number one pick like Kid Cunningham, right? But if you're a regular uh beyond top five pick, Bob Carrington played more minutes than others. So history says usually the main reason that rookie guards aren't that doesn't have a good shot in providing fantasy stats is because of the adjustment part, and because it's they're going to be more inefficient because they're new, they're young, more turnovers, bad field goal percentage. Good thing about Bob Carrington, of course, he's still prone to those problems, but he's been doing this since day one. So I'm pretty sure there's gonna be adjustments that he can do towards end of the season, and during those times, some teams aren't really in full force. So there's an opportunity there. So that's the hope. Okay. Other side of the coin, if you're losing, if you're in the bottom of the standing, then don't add Bob Carrington. I'd rather um, push you to just stream good players. Players that, like for example, the Philly game right now, they almost doesn't have any players there. So adding couple of streams while their usual starters or role players are out is a better value over rolling the dice to someone like Bob Carrington. So that's my take in holding Bob Carrington. Okay, what else? Let's see. So, I would also like to plug one of, or possibly the biggest fantasy basketball group in Facebook. So, if you haven't joined already, just join NBA Fantasy Basketball PH group. So, here, let's see a couple of questions. Okay. So, there's a trade here asking about Stephen Curry and Mikal Bridges versus Jarrett Allen and DeJounte Murray. Okay, so this is tricky because it's hard to answer this type of questions because there's going to be a winner, right? And for us to be able to justify if a certain package wins, we have to understand what their rosters are, and we don't have a visibility on that right now. So I would say, in general, just value alone, I think I'd rather have the Jarrett Allen, DeJounte Murray, just because it covers the ground of the big man stats and the guard stats. Of course, Mikal Bridges and Stephen Curry, to some extent, has more snipes, possibly could get more scoring. But then again, in terms of counting stats, especially on the defensive side of the things, I'm pretty sure Jarrett Allen and DeJounte can actually get those stats more. So I'm leaning more to it, unless again the Curry Mikal Bridges fits the specific team better. So that's the reason why this type of questions is really hard to answer. Give me a couple of seconds. Let me find another good topic to discuss here. By the way, I hope you're watching live, and if you're watching live, just comment your questions, and we'll definitely discuss that during all throughout the show. So let's see other questions in the group. Okay, so someone needs to drop one player, 12 team 9 cat. So the options are Christian Braun, Kaysen Wallace, Nikola Jovic, and Andrew Nembard. I'd probably vote in between Kaysen Wallace and Christian Braun. It's tricky. It could have been Kaysen Wallace. But Christian Braun isn't really performing well nowadays just because initially the start of the season he's been the one who's been supporting and doing the KCP 6 man role, but Russ is doing that right now. So I'm pretty sure that's the reason why Christian Brown's value isn't as good as the initial weeks. So with that said, it falls to your need in defensive stats. And if you need more, potential of scoring, then maybe you stick with Christian Braun, drop Kayson Wallace. If you need some steals, then I'd probably stick with Kayson Wallace and drop Christian Braun. Another question here: Miles Turner plus Cade Cunningham or Malik Monk. Oh, this is I didn't get the question. All are plus. So let's move forward. I don't think this is a good question to discuss. How about this? Someone offered their Carl Anthony Towns plus Colin Sexton for Lamelo Ball and Trey Murphy. So Carl Anthony Towns and Colin Sexton, Lamelo Ball and Trey Murphy. To be honest, it's pretty straightforward in terms of value. It should have been Lamelo and Trey Murphy, all all aspects. But in the case that you, number one, you're conscious with health. Number two, you need a big man. Then I could see a scenario that the Carl Anthony Town Sexton is a better bet. But generally, I'd go with Lamelo and Trey Murphy. Problem about these two, they have injury history. So if you're someone who, is a little bit conscious and picky on that aspect of fantasy basketball, then you might really end up getting the Carl Anthony Towns Sexton value. Another thing, this is a little bit lopsided. This could be a sell high on Colin Sexton to some point, but yeah, I mean, this is Lamelo and Trey Murphy. Straight up. Who's better, Keontae George and Tyus Jones? If you'd have asked me to start of the season, I'd probably say Keontae George 500%. But Tyus Jones has been really proving me wrong. The only reason that I'm gonna go back with Keontae George at this point, is number one, there's more upside for Keontae over Tyus Jones. Number two, the Phoenix Suns could move couple of players and get Jimmy Butler as per rumor, right? So if that's the case, that's another playmaker coming in or a better playmaker coming in, and that's gonna impact Tyus Jones' role. So Bradley Beal doesn't do that a lot in comparison to Jimmy Butler. Again, if that's the trade that's gonna happen. So I'm overseeing, I'm projecting that Tyus Jones could get a hit. So if that's the case, then I'm gonna stick with Keontae George here. Devin Vassell or Malik Monk? This is a good question. Again, in a vacuum, and if this is something that was asked weeks ago, I'd probably say Devin Vassell. But in this season, David Vassell hasn't been the healthiest of the players. And Malik Monk, since playing as a starter, really provided a lot of weeks of value that can really outshine Devin Vassell. But considering that Devin Vassell's fantasy profile is better than Malik Monk. So it's just a matter of like waiting on Devin Vassell getting some momentum, right? And he's already doing that. He has a better defensive stats over Malik Monk, but Malik Monk is a better scorer and could provide you more assists as well. So the icing on top here is again the next coming week, which is the trade deadline. I'm not sure if the Spurs is gonna be as active based on rumors than the Sacramento Kings, because a lot of rumors is already revolving around Sacramento wanting to get couple of wings in the market, the likes of surprisingly Kyle Kuzma. I don't know if they can afford Zach Lavine. Imagine getting Zach Lavine and DeMar DeRozan back again in Sacramento, right? There are rumors looking at moving De'Aaron Fox as well. So there's a lot of moving points there that could either help Malik Monk, but could also end up hurting Malik Monk. So just to have a safe value here, I'd probably choose Devin Vassell over Malik Monk. Okay, another trade here. Trey Murphy plus Malik Monk. Oh, there's a lot of Malik Monks getting involved in trades. So Trey Murphy plus Malik Monk for Cade Cunningham. Hmm. Well, of course, Cade Cunningham's value right now is a little bit high. He's been really tearing it up. He's really tearing it up in the past couple of weeks. Trey Murphy had a week like that. So that makes this interesting. And then you add a Malik Monk as a sweetener. So currently, if you check the season long value, Kate Cunningham is ranked number 4, 47th, and Trey Murphy is ranked number 18. So value wise, 9 cat, uh, Trey Murphy outvalues Kate Cunningham. But especially if this is a head to head format, some GMs doesn't always look at it that way. There are several cats that are really, I don't know, people overlook like efficiencies, percentages and stuff like that. But I'd probably go with Trey Murphy and Malik Monk here over Kate Cunningham just because of, again, that reason. A good game of Trey Murphy can outvalue a good game of Kate Cunningham considering it's 9 cat. I know it's not gonna happen always, but getting the sweetener of Malik Monk, and since New Orleans Pelicans could be eventually tanking just because of what's happening right now to them. They might end up trading Brandon Ingram and maybe Zion. So there's a good space there for Trey Murphy. So there's value. There's value. So yeah, I'd probably lean more on Trey Murphy and Malik Monk here. Interesting trade. The other questions here. Uh-huh. So I have here a streaming question. Unfortunately, I won't be I won't have a chance to answer this. So it's between Krejci versus THJ for stream. So I would have answered THJ here. I'm not sure. I think the Detroit Pistons game is already done. Just because Jalen Johnson is back. So it's not just about players being back. It's also the dynamics of the team when their main players or core players comes back. So I just think that caps the upside of Krejci. On the other hand, Detroit, they have this dynamic wherein, hey, whoever gets hot, is it Malik Beasley, is it Tim Hardaway Jr., they just allow that. So I'd probably lean more on THJ here as a stream. Question here. Aaron Gordon or Nurkic? Well, as of the moment, it's clearly Aaron Gordon because I don't know if they are saying that the rumors of Nurkic getting traded died. The Phoenix Suns are having a hard time getting a trade partner for Nurkic. They're saying that. So if that's the case, that's bad for his value, given that in the last week he was already out of the rotation, and then Nick Richards was just signed, and now he's gonna be what, the third or fourth uh option as a big man in the Phoenix Suns. So that's possibly zero value. The only value that Nurk can get is if he gets traded. Right. On the other hand, Gordon, even though he's providing a little bit of mediocre stats, he's still providing those stats. So mediocre stats still trumps zero stats. So yeah. Another question here: Ryan Dunn or Noah Clowney? Oh, interesting. I'd probably choose Noah Clowney here just because of the upside. Again, we have to consider that we still have a couple of weeks of timeline towards trade deadline. So something could happen. And Phoenix Suns moving players could actually hurt Ryan Dunn's value than help him. I might be wrong, but that's how I see it. Unlike Noah Clowney, any player that gets moved away from Brooklyn helps Noah Clowney. As long as Noah Clowney, holds his temper because he's been ejected the last time, then I see him trending up. So I'm choosing Noah Clowney here. Uh, what else? Couple more. So Papi Gary here added Donovan Klingan a few days ago. Now he can stash it him in the IL plus. So he's trying to ask what are the chances of DeAndre Ayton getting traded. I can't say it's that high because in terms of the suitors, as far as I'm concerned, there are more suitors towards Time Lord or Robert Williams over DeAndre Ayton just because of course the contract difference, right? But maybe there's a chance. I just don't think it's that high. Though I'm not gonna be surprised if Ayton gets traded. But this is a good strategy. I've been kind of like preaching in my our Friday live. So though it's in Filipino version or dubbed in Filipino language, I always say, "Hey, Papi Roi, who are your best or top stashes?" So I always say couple of big bands. I have Donovan Klingan, I have Kelal Ware, I have Jalen Smith, and guards I have Bob Carrington. So those names keeps coming whenever that question gets asked, and I just think that Klingan has the best stash, the most stashable of them all, because the Portland Blazers and Klingan himself gets a lot of GTD or out tags or injured tags. So it means you can really stash Klingan in your IL or IL plus. Kelelware has been healthy for, and then Jalen Smith as well. But in general, if any one of those players gets an IL or IL plus eligibility, I definitely stash those players. So yeah, interesting conversation for the upcoming trade deadline, and we are going to do a show for that. A couple more questions before we end the show. And again, guys, don't shy away with regards to your questions. Just comment out in our Facebook and YouTube live via Fantasy Six Pack. So shout out to Fantasy Six Pack for letting me do this in their page and their YouTube channel. Let's see. Let's run more questions here. Actually, there's a lot, but I'm just picking some quick questions to that we can actually cater. Mm-hmm. A lot of trade questions, to be honest. Oh, there you go. Here, Joel Embiid and Zach Levine for Evan Mobley. Hmm. Interesting, because Zach Levine and Embiid could straight up out value Evan Mobley here, but it's just a question of health and certainty. Because sometimes peace of mind is better than upside. So I do understand the logic behind this trade. So I'd probably still pick Joel Embiid and Zach Levine here, just to that idea that the moment the Joel Embiid plays a couple of games, he has more. I can get better value than Evan Mobley alone. So that's my connotation. But I get the logic of this trade, but I'd probably lean more. We're just halfway the season, and I understand that it has been really frustrating for Joel Embiid owners. So if you just really want to flip Joel Embiid, I understand that. Go ahead, but this isn't the best time to trade Joel Embiid. So that's my point. Best time to trade Joel Embiid is just to wait for him to play. Unfortunately, that's a week from now, just because of the new update. Okay. By the way, part of our last question. So this is a very interesting trade that happened in one of my leagues. So shout out to the FBPH leagues in Yahoo that we've hosted for this season. So there's a trade that was cashed in. It's LeBron James and Amen Thompson for Luka Doncic and Stefan Cassell. So I don't know, Stefan Cassell, or Castle rather. If this is like a standard, usual regular trade, I would have say fine. I mean, I get the logic, right? LBJ, Amen. Generally, Amen is playing very well, but even though Luka is a number one pick, he's out. So I understand the logic behind. Thing is, the catch about this trade, the one who's gonna get Luka is the number one seed in this league and has Nikola Jokic. So I'm not saying that I won't allow that just because we don't want that team to get better. I'm not allowing this trade just because the return of from Luka Doncic doesn't guarantee the lower seed to actually go up in the standings. So I understand LBJ is fine and Amen as well, but the reason why you're trading Luka Doncic and maybe Stefan Castle is because Luka's injured. You need some wins. You need some healthy players. And then Stefan Cassell, I don't know. And this is just possibly just a choice to be added just to balance the trade. He is gonna have a value towards the end as long as Jeremy Sohan is um out. So it might end up as just Luka Doncic, right? On the flip side, getting LBJ and Amen, even though they are, especially Amen is really playing good right now, is a little bit. I don't know. It's if it's the right trade to help out the lower seed that proposed this trade, because LBJ isn't really playing in the past couple of weeks. So there are some games that he isn't playing. Amen as well, and then Tari Eason just come back, so we don't know. We've seen them coexisting, but then again, it could change somehow. Upside is there, but I can't really guarantee that Amen is gonna be playing that much of usage and playing time all throughout the season. So with that said, you're trading your first rounder and a possible end of the season value guy for good players actually, but I don't see a clear health and a clear value that could move the needle for this lower seed to really get some wins. So I would have targeted like a healthier bunch or a healthier package. I would have targeted someone that has no questions in their fantasy profile rest of the season. Because let's be honest, LBJ is not the youngest of the player, so I can still see couple of games that he could end up sitting down. I mean, as I've mentioned, his upside is enormous, but there's still some risk there. So yeah, so that's the logic behind me denying this trade just because of the benefits. So when I calculated possible benefits, I don't see a good amount of benefit towards the lower seed. And of course, since that's the case, it could end up skewing the standing because the number one seed is involved. So that's just my point. I don't. I'm not saying it's the best explanation, but that's how I see it. And as a commissioner, I have to really deny this thing. So yeah, that's that. Last question. There you go. Ives Misi, rest of the season value. Um, a lot of people are dropping Ives Misi. I can see the reason he's not been playing in the well in the past games. But again, you have to always consider if you're not losing a lot, if you're in your standings, you're still fine, and maybe you're on top of the standings. You have to be more open to the idea of stashing Ives Misi just because there could be some movements to be done in the New Orleans side. So if I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but if say for example Zion Williamson gets traded, I don't know which player they get back, but maybe it allows Yves Missy to get back those goodies that he showed us earlier this season and during those weeks wherein Zion Williamson was out. So that's just the value there. So in shallower leagues, standard, sure, shallower, definitely go ahead, drop Yves Missy. But deeper leagues, I'd probably stick with Yves Missy a little bit more. We are just out at least 3 weeks, at most 3 weeks, right? So I'd rather wait and see and check if his value goes up if there's any trade that happens in New Orleans. Okay, so I guess that's it. Shout out to Fantasy Six Pack again for working with us. I am the host and owner of Fantasy Basketball PH. If you haven't checked that, check our content. We post every day, and then we have a lot of interesting and Filipino flavored contents that you might end up enjoying. So check out Fantasy Basketball PH via Facebook. That's our main source of content. And then of course we have YouTube, we have podcasts as well that is available in Spotify. Other than that, shout out to Fantasy Six Pack. This is gonna happen on a weekly basis. We might end up creating and gather questions specifically for Fantasy Six Pack viewers and followers. So if you're not used to live Q&A, maybe you can just shoot questions and we are gonna discuss it throughout the show. Of course, we still have an over arcing um, topic like earlier. We talked about Mark Williams and Onyeka Okongwu just to provide content as well. So thank you so much, guys. See you around and let's see each other again next week in our F6P Fantasy Basketball Live Show. Bye bye.